Hi, Ahu.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Here we are.
Can I try to share my screen for the poll?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I need to open the poll first. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I have my notes and everything. I feel very
Me too. Look,
prepared. Yeah. I
can you
feel
see the poll?
I can.
Oh, perfect. So then you can stop sharing and then I show the results if you want. Then you can, and then I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay. So let me pull up our, I'll share out our presentation
Am I
then.
too dark? I do have a light, but I think I'm against.
Tell me if you see, hold on. Do you see the slides?
If you click on the tab, now I see.
I'm going to do slideshow, right?
Yeah.
How does this look?
Oh, that's good. Let's take a picture. let me stop my camera and then I'll take.
Should I get off?
No, I'll take you. Fine. Because it's gonna be, let's see, great. And then I took, yeah, it's great. It's on my computer, but yep.
Good.
Yeah. Should I move my, no, I don't. Yeah, I locked my door so nobody barges in.
That's good. So what happens? Do we just, do people just start joining? Is that what happens?
Yeah, I think we are gonna have a moderator, but I'm not sure.
Oh, well.
I don't know if I should move my chair.
No experience for me.
This looks good. I like it.
So is that that QR code is the...
Well, I added the QR code, I think the slide second from the last, but I also made it small and then I put it in here.
Okay. But this is the Wakelet code.
Yeah, and then also we also have the same code at the end.
Is it a Wakelet or a Padlet?
It is a Wakelet.
Okay, hold on then. I gotta go and, because I think we say Padlet.
Oh, there's Padlet. Okay.
Like that, right?
That, yeah. Okay. I added our resources there, and then I also put our website information there too. So if people go in there and look. Can we start now or wait a minute or so? All right.
You can start.
Perfect. Laura, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Good afternoon. Good to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining our presentation on minimizing barriers in workforce for adult English learners. Although after listening to Tan's keynote address this afternoon, I almost feel like we should rebrand to partnering with adult English learners in the workforce. So just food for thought for next session. Just to introduce myself, and then I'll let my colleague Ahu introduce herself. I'm Laura Ostrowski, Adult Education Program Specialist with the Maryland Department of Labor, and we're both in the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning at Maryland Labor. Go ahead, Ahu.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Moser. I am also one of the adult education program specialists in the same division where Laura works. I'm very happy to be here, and this is my second time. Texas TESOL 5 brought me kind of good luck last year, and then after the conference I had a new job, so we are very happy to be here this afternoon with you all. We really mean it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I was just telling Ahu earlier that I am so grateful and honored that she invited me to co-present with her. This is truly special. Part of our responsibilities at the Maryland Department of Labor do include supporting AFLA Title II funded adult ed programs across Maryland in terms of professional development and grant oversight. Although overall, I think I'm not speaking out of turn by saying that both of us are quite passionate and interested in exploring solutions to the dilemma of access in the workplace for adult learners, particularly non-native English speakers. So both in our roles, I think at Maryland Labor, but also personally, we do want to share with you the fruits of some of our research and experiences. And in doing so, it's important that we make the following disclaimer, and I'll just kind of read it verbatim. This presentation is solely for education and training purposes, does not include or replace independent professional judgment. Statements of fact and opinions expressed are solely those of the presenters, us individually, and unless stated otherwise, are not the opinion or the position of the Maryland Department of Labor. Of course, this session is recorded and may be shared in various media, such as online and video formats. Resources and a copy of the presentation will be provided via Wakelet, and we do have a code to access later in the presentation. And so with our personal and professional interests in ensuring that individuals have the tools to promote and access their personal and economic well-being. Particularly, again, English language learners are really anyone with in a vulnerable situation. Our session objectives do include providing guidance to adult ed instructors, career navigators, and coaches in support of English language learners who are transitioning into employment, looking for jobs, or seeking career advancement and growth. We want you to learn about the challenges and solutions surrounding pre and post entry into the workforce for English language learners, and reasons why employers should hire English language learners.
And this is our snapshot of today's agenda. Introduction, we have a short poll. We would like to know who is in this Zoom room with us this afternoon. We are hoping to talk a little bit about, as most of you already know, but who are adult English language learners and who is looking for a job among those adult English language learners, and what their needs are. What are the needs of adult English language learners and the challenges facing adult English language learners, and why it is extremely beneficial to have diverse staff, or to have refugees and new Americans, or I always like to say our new neighbors, as diverse staff in our communities, in companies, or in organizations. And then Laura and I will do our best to give some tips about helping non-native English speaking adults, or ELLs, or multilingual learners. As we all know, there are a lot of terminology around it. So we are hoping that we could give some tips about that. And all right, Yes.
So, sorry, Ahu, were you going to say something about the previous slide?
No. I thought I left an item, but it is perfectly fine. No
Oh,
problem
okay.
at all.
Oh,
Thank
now I
you.
got to go back. So for our poll, we do have a poll just to learn more about you and who is in the room with us today. So if you are able to access the poll via Poll Everywhere, I will put the link into the chat, or you may also text capital Ahu Moser, LABOR 008 to 22333, but I'll also put the link into the chat. Just a moment. Oop, I was supposed to be hyperlinked, but and let me know when I should share the results, Ahu.
Sure, if you could please stop sharing your screen, and I think I will be able to share my screen to show the results. Let's see. All right. Oh, I almost had a heart attack. It was like, oh my God, did my poll really work? And then I think it worked. All right, and then here shows 100% other, and you know, it is very interesting. Maybe if we could engage through the chat, if you could please put what your role is, because everybody seems that they have chosen other. And I will stop sharing my screen. I would love to see what is your role in your organization. Okay, Andrea, thank you. Andrea is an instructor. And then there's Nikki. Nikki is a teacher educator of adult ESL teachers. Thank you for that.
Oh, wonderful.
That's great.
And so just a little bit more about what we do at the Maryland Department of Labor. In our office, which is a subset of the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning, we do support the programs by which individuals can enroll in classes to increase their basic literacy skills in reading, math, writing, or to learn rather the English language, to prepare for also the high school equivalency tests, GED tests, or the NEDP, National External Diploma Program, also to earn Maryland High School Diploma credential, and improving life skills, numeracy, digital literacy to increase their readiness for job and workplace advancement. These are some of the services, the specific services that adult learners in Maryland can participate within our programs. From, again, the basic academic skills to transitions to post-secondary, to family literacy and integrated education and training. And as far as, who we serve, what our population looks like, we are serving adults who are 18 and older, who are not currently enrolled in high school or secondary education, or those who are individuals with low literacy and limited English proficiency. We do offer services across Maryland, all counties, Baltimore City, and including correctional facilities. And we do provide the state and federal funding for these services as described by WIOA.
And Laura's last slide brings us to, I could say maybe today's most kind of the most important question that is going to lead us to what we are going to talk about, some tips and challenges and the benefits of having diverse staff. But who are the adult English language learners? So if you are an instructor who have been in adult ed, or if you are an elementary or K-12 instructor, who has been teaching children, but we all know about their parents and such. So we are somehow, whatever content area or whatever demographics that we are teaching, it's all about the adult English language learners when it comes to, what we teach or how we teach. So here we have, yes, maybe it looks something like a paragraph, and I'm not going to read our paragraph to you, but I think, I think everybody would agree, yes, adult language learners are goal-oriented, and oftentimes their goals are really short-term because they really need a job, or they need to be able to help their kids, or they need to be able to find a job, or even, passing their driving test, right? So they're all goal-oriented, and then they do have demands. Some of the adult language learners, they are professionals from their countries. They have extensive education, some of them, but there are some others who really do not have that kind of experience. But the ones with the credentials and such, when they are in their new communities, they would like to find a job, but sometimes they want to find a job in their own profession, but they fail to do so immediately. So they need help in, workplace skills or finding a job. So they do have demands. And also, in Maryland, there are close to 25, 24 adult education programs funded by Maryland Department of Labor with federal funds as well. There are also other organizations who serve English language learners or multilingual learners. The thing is that these adult language learners really need to see the value when they want to attend an adult education program. If there is a certificate program that is offered at a specific adult education program, if adult language learners see that there is no value to it, then they really do not attend that class, or they just attend and then they stop going to the class. And then we just wanted to put it out there just to have this an idea about who are the English language learners and what they need. And I do believe, yeah. Yes, Laura.
So I see a couple of ESL instructors in the audience. So, probably some familiarity with WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Really the emphasis that draws from our work experience as well as personal interest, emphasizing the need to prepare adults, including English language learners, for employment in those high demand industries and occupations. That sort of is the foundation and the driver for a lot of and much of the work we do. As well as exploring those rich partnerships that are born through some of the groundwork laid by WIOA between workforce and human services and economic development activities and employers within the regions, so that there is this direct correlation between English and educational attainment, as well as the experiences that bring adult learners into the classrooms. So all of this, I think, is really the foundational piece behind what drives us and continues to make us passionate about the work we do.
Yeah, so this brings us to who is looking for a job. When we think about our new neighbors or new Americans or refugees or immigrants or the adult English language learners, and they don't necessarily have to be adult English language learners, but we could easily group them into two. So we do have one group in which we have low-skilled immigrants. They are low-skilled immigrants because they really did not have any schooling, or they did have some limited schooling. There might be different reasons that we know. It is either there were some domestic maybe violence going on in their countries, or maybe they didn't have the resources, or they didn't have the access to schooling back home. Or what happens is that maybe they went to school back home and then they are here and then they do not have any work experience, or maybe they have little work experience, or maybe these low-skilled immigrants, they have always done manual jobs. And even if someone is not an immigrant, in our communities as well, we have some professions who do work, like manual jobs, and they have never done any other kinds of jobs other than manual jobs. Or these low-skilled immigrants could be limited English proficient, or we call them as LEP. And then Lori and I are aware that there's tons of terminology around it. So if you are familiar with using a terminology and we're using something else, please be patient with us, because there is a lot of terminology, and then there's limited English proficient, there is multilingual learners. But here in this presentation, we'll mostly talk about the limited English proficient. And on the other hand, there are skilled immigrants. In Maryland, we call them as internationally trained professionals. When we do serve these individuals, our services, they do come with extensive and advanced degrees, and then professional degrees. They do have work experience. Maybe they have had long years of experience, and they find themselves in this new community that they would like to do their own job. And then if they cannot find a job about what they did back home, then it really causes some stress. So I'm an immigrant myself, so I could really tell how a person who has had this extensive experience back home and then finds himself or herself or themselves here with no opportunity immediately to start a job that they did before. And then also, it really doesn't matter about these advanced degrees or work experiences. As I mentioned about the low-skilled immigrants, both groups could have the limited English. They could be limited English proficient. So these are kind of the two groups that we see a lot when we look at our programs in Maryland, and also one-stop centers in Maryland. And then this really brings us to data. Our resources that we share in this presentation, we have added everything in our Wakelet. Even our presentation is there. But what basically is that when someone has very low skills, and then they unfortunately end up in low-paying jobs, and then this really brings them to struggle to support their families and maybe families back home. And then things really get very hard for them to even go and find a program, to get enrolled in a certificate program, to get better jobs, or to get a better job, or to advance on their jobs. So their language skills being low skills, these skills really affect them negatively to access the programs, to find programs, and to find resources. And this is we found this study with the PIAC, and then we did also, as I mentioned earlier, put it in our presentation. And then it is a very comprehensive study that really, when I read it, and then I was an English instructor myself, but what I see now in the programs and how our students really end up in low-paying jobs, and they cannot even find an opportunity to find programs, is in this data as well, and it's very interesting to read. And then the needs of the adult English language learners. And I said this before during the presentation. We would like our students, our clients, to get the necessary occupational skills training, maybe at one-stop centers or American job centers. And our English language learners, the ELLs, need the work readiness skills. What they are familiar with back home is definitely not the same work environment and culture here. So there are a lot of adjustment about the culture of the work environment. So, you know, these students, these ELS really need support with that. And then we would like these English language learners not to get stuck in an entry-level job. We want them to move ahead. We want them to have, you know, sufficient opportunities to move ahead.
So in recognizing some of the challenges that, you know, one may face at work, you know, further exacerbated by, you know, that non-native speaking piece, looking at this list, I think they're very deep, each one with certain challenges and obstacles, but written communication, for example, you know, coming with a variety of hurdles, with a variety of considerations, including pacing and, you know, some of the non or tangential pieces like empathy and just understanding. All of these, such as the technical language and the culture, stereotyping, etc., without sort of that understanding piece and the patience behind working collectively within the workplace, all can weaken team cohesion, whether it's among various team members, horizontally, vertically, leadership, peer-to-peer. This inclusivity, lack of inclusivity rather, can threaten and erode the employee's presence and voice, as well as the overall productivity and feelings of accomplishment at the workplace, and productivity overall for the organization. And so in addition to some of these challenges that we see displayed, including the conscious and unconscious bias, you know, considerations with respect to accent and, again, the terminology and academic comprehension. If anyone else notices anything else that's not included on the list that is definitely a challenge that you've experienced or seen or heard about, please feel free to put it in the chat. We're quite interested in recognizing where these touch points emerge, so that we can begin to, I think, collectively start to work on them. So, for example, in terms of this what we see as gaps or voids in making some of those interpersonal connections, I've just, you know, we've got here a variety of situations and results, so kind of causes and effects. So a lack of awareness, just starting there. If a request is posed to a non-native English speaker to produce something at a moment's notice to a variety of audiences in multiple modalities, there is that result by which anxiety is increased, the time and just, you know, ability to pull together all of the correct terminology and to really ensure that a presentation is displayed in such a way that the speaker is desiring to achieve a result, without the awareness to some of those transitions. It can create a very stressful environment, of course. Without support, with a lack of support, there's a lack of understanding in terms of native speakers proceeding very quickly or using arcane or obscure cultural references, and just the lack of space that's required to process and really become a part of the conversation, or that there'll be this overarching sort of paternalism, this linguistic imperialism that emerges, and the result of which is that again, you're eroding at the safety and the comfort within the workplace, without those levels of support and understanding. And then finally, empathy, without empathy being present, as the cultural differences in humor or just conversation in general, topics that may be considered humorous in one situation and not in others, that can be also just misconstrued and misperceived as something that's overly blunt or overly removed, or assumptions can be made from all of these various points that just again lead to gaps and chasms in terms of developing that unity from these key social indicators. So all of these examples, I think, speak to the need for looking ahead and seeing where we can come together and really galvanize the contributions that each employee brings to the table. And again, if anyone else sees that there are other examples that you've exhibited or not exhibited yourselves, but seen exhibited within the workplace, we'd be happy to hear about those so we can take a look at those further. And so I think overall, these considerations ultimately lead to the idea that there are benefits to overcoming these gaps, to overcoming these considerations, in that the diversity of one's staff, the diversity of the workplace, will ultimately drive a heightened level of creativity, a heightened level of innovation that will help solve problems that I think, coming at it from different vantage points and different views, will help to produce a solution that's seen in a new way. It, will definitely breed out of the box thinking and creative solutions, to also fuel some healthy competition that is essential to the workplace, and essential to driving greater results, higher quality, marketing and internal messaging and external messaging that is culturally sensitive, to again overall drive this greater productivity, greater performance, and also an intrinsic self-value within the workplace, not feeling undermined or feeling out of place within one's own team or within one's own company. So I think the idea being that if we can recognize the value and the organizational levels within that will give each other and themselves the space and patience and perspective to move forward, that's when we're going to reap the best results. And so we recognize this and want to see how we can continue to improve the workplace with these ideas. And so one industry in which we do feel like there are some lessons that we can pull from, because there are some things that are going on that are very promising, is within healthcare. There are some legal guidelines and legislation that I think brought healthcare to the point that it's at, because quite literally, nowhere else is it more evident that access is life-sustaining. It's a life or death question. To receive those services that are essential in terms of care or patient interaction. So to go back to some of that legislation, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Affordable Care Act, also Executive Order 13166, require persons with limited English proficiency to have meaningful access to healthcare services, speaking to healthcare services, such that if you are an institution that's receiving federal funding or federal assistance, you're barred from discriminating based on language or based on access concerning language. And so in healthcare and in other industries as well, we see the emergence of language access plans that accommodate persons so that we are able to all enter at the same point and receive the same levels of communication and care so that we can participate on an equal footing within many of these industries. Oops.
We are going to talk a little bit about Maryland's language access plan later. Maryland has a language access plan, which we believe that it is really beneficial for adult English language learners, and then making sure that they are not left out in workplace and also in our communities. However, what we are trying to do as a division is to really make sure that our partners, our programs, or our department as well, we all really understand some of the key terms and definitions, and there are a lot of key terms and definitions, as we all know. But what we are basically trying to show our partners and our colleagues at work is that the importance of effective communication when it comes to adult English language learners. And we are pushing about the interpretation and translation services. And we are also doing a lot of work when it comes to language assistance services. For example, in Maryland, there's the language line. Companies and government offices can easily get access to serve English language learners. But one of the items that here, the limited English proficient, most of our colleagues at work, when we say limited English proficient, most people think that a person really is limited English proficient in reading, writing, speaking, and listening in 4 skills. Our purpose is to tell them someone might be limited English proficient in reading and writing, but that person could be very well competent in speaking and listening. So do not expect that person who will be limited English proficient in 4 skills. You might meet someone that you could get in a conversation, perfect conversation, but when it comes to reading and writing skills, that person might be really limited English proficient. So we are trying to bring this kind of awareness to our communities, to our friends, and also to the organizations that we work with. And our language access plan is incredibly detailed, but these are some of the basic things that we try to get the word out when it comes to key terms and definitions.
Yeah, I see the comment in the chat about the show on Disney Plus and Flag Makers, and no, I have not seen it either, but I am inspired to see it because such a blessing to work in a place where we can have those unique vantage points, and we can celebrate the variety within every team. We recognize that doesn't exist everywhere, of course, but I do think we find somewhat of a juxtaposition when it comes to limited English proficient individuals versus as a consideration with the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's this juxtaposition where certainly LEP is not synonymous with individuals with disabilities, but there are considerations when it comes to cultural constraints or norms that prevent individuals with disabilities who are in fact LEP from receiving the required services. There are, of course, services in place for Americans with disabilities through the Americans with Disabilities Act, and therefore, without question, individuals who are LEP with disabilities or that are deaf or hard of hearing, there are technologies and things of that nature that will need to be availed within the workplace. So that is the importance of providing the basic rights, not just to Americans with disabilities, individuals with disabilities, but also those who are limited English proficient with disabilities. So just another consideration in terms of this, in terms of the layering that this can impact. And aside from the fact that, you know, we have all of these legislations in place, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, providing that, you know, no one shall be subject to discrimination on the basis of color, national origin, or any program under any program or activity that receives federal financial assistance. None of these considerations should be a barrier to an individual who is limited English proficient, who is in the workplace, not just for legislative reasons, not just for because it's the law, but because it's the right thing to do. I think that's the bigger picture here, is that though the laws speak for how businesses should structure their practices when they are receiving federal funding in particular, but I think in general, it fuels this larger conversation of just a social conscience, as opposed to simply, oh, we need to do this because it's the law. I'm just looking at the comment now in the chat from Philip. Medical language is hard for native speakers to follow. Okay. Besides language, is there is a cultural issue of who makes the decisions, the medical professional or the patient? Yeah, absolutely. This is a great point. There's a lot of, I just feel like this becomes so multi-layered in terms of, again, legislative pieces, employer action and employer policy, and also considerations of the industry itself being imposed on the operations of a particular business. Makes it very challenging to navigate, I think. That's fantastic. Yeah. And so with these, in particular, the language access plans and the I Speak cards and the translator services provided by, you know, more and more many healthcare institutions, it's great to see. And also the training that's involved, that's coming behind the medical interpreters, so that, again, those rights, those responsibilities are being employed in an effective way. That's, again, not creating an additional constraint. Because of course, when we include another person in the translation activity, you know, there are considerations there to ensure that information is being translated and transcribed in an effective, accessible way.
This is a little bit of short information about Maryland's language access plan. So the background story about is that, so our division, so we work at Maryland Department of Labor, and our department is Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. Laura and I are on the adult learning side mostly. So our department came together to create a work group. And then, so this work group is to create Maryland's language access plan. So the Division of Unemployment Insurance, local areas, and also Maryland Department of Labor's fair practices, everybody was involved to create this language access plan. And this is about 100% serving our residents in Maryland who are limited English proficiency individuals. And then the end goal is to make sure that we are all working to ensure that our LEP residents, the individual residents, they do get the equal opportunities when it comes to one-stop centers, and also workplace, and also other services. What we would like to show you all is that we would like to show a little bit about the numbers in Maryland, but we also have numbers from Texas. We did a little bit research about that. So I think we could go to the next slide, Laura. So in Maryland, when we think about the languages spoken, or when we think about the demographics, what happens is that if a population is 2% or more, those populations need to be provided with language access. As you could see, in Maryland, 50% is Spanish, and then followed by Chinese and Korean. So as of 2019 in Maryland, according to a study by the Migration Policy Institute, the residents who were born right outside Maryland, the number is 922,000. And out of this number, 39.5, when they were asked about their English language skills, they answered that their English is less than well. So they are considered as limited English proficient in Maryland. And I was looking at the numbers. I'm sure all of you know maybe some other data or maybe more recent numbers, but I was looking for Texas, and it showed that 4,951,000 residents were born outside, they are foreign born, and 53% say that they speak English less than well. Considering Texas is way bigger than Maryland, but they are also considered as limited English proficient. In Maryland, there are some other languages. They are really taking the strides. Some languages like Arabic, Amharic, and Tigrinya, but they are not in that 2% percentage yet. But we do still have resources for those languages as well.
And so, from some of our study and research of what we've seen as effective practices within employment agencies, one-stop and American job centers, and across a variety of industries, we've kind of compiled a few tips in terms of how we can begin to analyze really and assess what's missing and how we can begin to bridge some of those gaps. So first and foremost, if at all possible, those interpretive and translation services for all essential documents, things that are going to necessitate access to the information within a particular industry or business, having those in multiple formats. Many of our, most, I believe, of our adult English or adult education and English language service programs, they do have intake forms and a variety of class schedules and different diploma options. They offer those in the languages most prevalent within their communities. So providing those types of documents so that individuals can access the services that much more readily. Finding out, exactly through needs assessment, what is desired or demanded or needed within a particular community. So again, like at the state level or at the local level, even reaching out into the communities to find out through needs analysis and needs assessment, services that are perceived as missing, and what information, how can we support those that are existing through enhanced communication. In terms of training employers in cultural awareness, having these workshops and presentations on unconscious or unconscious bias issues, as well as cultural awareness trainings, that will all be beneficial in terms of raising awareness within employment, a variety of businesses. I speak cards or posters, which allow individuals to note and to identify languages as preferred, so that services can be immediately accessible through a translator or other kind of interpretation. And assistive technologies to those who are LEP that are also protected individuals under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Just reading the comment in the chat.
Same.
Yeah, Absolutely, absolutely. And if anyone, again, just has seen effective uses of job training, cultural awareness training in the workplace, we're always eager to hear about how that's being implemented, how it's being perceived as a need, and therefore celebrated within an organization. I think in terms of, again, this idea of differentiating culture versus learning disabilities. So unlike, it's not uncommon, of course, that many of our adult education, adult students might have grown up and do exhibit certain learning disabilities and a variety of, perhaps other disabilities. We're finding that non-native speakers were successful in previous educational experiences. They're enrolled to speak, read, write in a new language, so that a variety of methods and strategies can build on these emergent language learners' strengths. There could be, again, that idea of cultural pressure, suppressing sort of seeking out accommodations for undiagnosed conditions. And we can, begin to dive deeper and pull apart the layers of that onion through perhaps mentorship opportunities, peer-to-peer support structures, so that it's not perceived as any kind of a punitive endeavor. So really just, again, diving into what each individual needs in terms of how they can access that information most conveniently. Again, whether it's through peer support or any kind of other community engagement, so that we can really get to the heart of whatever the challenge may be. Oops, I went too fast.
I think we're almost time as well, Laura.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right
So,
now, 47.
absolutely. Again, just any feedback about challenges or questions you may be experiencing in terms of working with English language learners within the workplace, what challenges they've experienced, and how we can continue to support those initiatives in the state of Maryland, and hopefully through our presentations elsewhere in the country. We'd love to hear about it, but I do hear you, Ahu. I think we are out of time. So I think we're going to share with you our Wakelet, which includes our presentation, right, and resources.
Yeah. Yeah, you can either take a picture of the QR, or if you don't want to do that, you can click on the link. And our Wakelet QR code is also on the first slide of our presentation. Our presentation, all the resources about Maryland, everything is there. And we really thank all of you for your time to join our presentation.
Ahu, can you post the link in the chat for the Wakelet?
I am going to do my best. Let's see. If not, I will put it in Hoa, and then everybody can see it. Definitely.
But thank you so much. Appreciate all of the comments in the chat, and just your general support in being here today.
Yes, Katie. See you at COIV in Atlanta. Thank you so much for everyone for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.